Do you trust your wife?
Well, do you?
It's possible for you to retire for life on Do You Trust Your Wife? Starring Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy, and Mortimer Snerd. Brought to you by the Frigidaire Division of General Motors and the Frigidaire dealers of your community. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight a husband, by knowing whether to trust his wife, can possibly retire for life. Yes, our trust fund question pays $100 a week, every week for an entire year. And the trust fund winner may return and keep winning an additional year's income until he's defeated. Back to compete with tonight's winners to try for $100 a week for a second year, our mind reader Albert Mogul and his wife, Inez. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is the star of our show, Edgar Bergen, with Charlie McCarthy.
And our musical conductor, Frank Duvall.
Edgar, here are Chuck and Phyllis Vincent of Encino, California.
Chuck, what sort of work do you do?
Well, my wife and I have a television rental and repair business.
Oh, I see.
Here in Los Angeles.
You're a television repairman? When did you first decide not to go straight?
Oh, no. No.
Well, is there a trend toward having more than one television set in the house now?
Oh, yes, very much so. Many people are buying second sets or used sets. They put them in their bedrooms for themselves. They put them in their children's rooms. And I even have one customer who bought one for his bathroom.
For his bathroom, uh-huh. Well, where do they go during their commercials, then? No. Phyllis, what do you do in the shop?
Very good. Well, I'm the bookkeeper and answer telephones and so forth while Chuck's back repairing the sets.
Oh, I see. Well, how much do you charge for renting a set?
$1 a day.
$1 a day. And how long does the average customer keep a set, then?
Well, that's a little hard to say. We have one customer who's been renting for 5 years at $1 a day.
Well, that amounts up to around $1,500, doesn't it?
Shh, we don't want him to know this.
Oh, I see. Chuck, why would someone rent a TV set when they can buy one, outright?
Well, they
cheap?
just don't seem to want to invest the money in television.
Maybe they're waiting for television to blow over. No. You mean that people who rent sets can't afford to buy them, then?
No, that isn't true. Bing Crosby's one of my very best customers.
Oh.
Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis are good customers. Frank Sinatra, Maureen O'Hara. In fact, Ava Gardner. In fact, I had a very interesting experience with her.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I imagine so, yeah. I just remember where you are. Yeah, all right. Well, what happened with Ava Gardner? Yeah, why didn't it happen to me? All right.
And she was, at the time, Frank Sinatra was on the air, and she refused to give up the television set until he was off. And
Yeah.
So she made me sit down and watch this program. I was in a rush to get back to the shop, but there was what else could I have done?
Well, I tell you what you could have done. You could have left the set and taken Ava back to the shop. Phyllis, aren't you jealous when Charles makes these deliveries to these glamorous actresses?
No, I trust him implicitly. It kind of works both ways. I take care of the handsome actors.
I see. Well, now, if I were to rent a set, would you install it, Phyllis?
No, I'm afraid not. I'd send Chuck around to do that.
Chuck, I see. Well, in that case, when Chuck is installing the set, I'll be over in the shop with you then, yes? Phyllis, do you get any unusual requests in this work?
Oh, yes, we get a number of them. I think about the strangest one was in the very early days of television set, a customer called and wanted to rent an antenna for the roof.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want a set and they didn't have one, but they wanted their neighbors to think they did.
How did Chuck propose, Phyllis?
Well, it was very romantic. We were driving down the street and he was in the middle of a left-hand turn.
Yeah.
And by the time he'd finished the turn, I had accepted.
Oh. Well, now, there is what I call an example of reckless driving. Yeah, he was instead of sticking his hand out, he was sticking his neck out. Yeah, all right. And I almost loused it up, too. Yes. Well, when did you get married then, Chuck?
June 14th, 1946.
Yeah. Did you have a honeymoon?
Yes, we had a very wonderful honeymoon. We went down to Laguna. We took her mother, my best man, my sister, and a couple other friends.
You did, Well, didn't you sort of feel a little in the way?
Well, it's been nice chatting with you.
Mr. and Mrs. Vincent, you can win up to $1,200 in cash tonight on your way to our trust fund question. Your first correct answer is worth $100. Your second correct answer is worth $200. Your third correct answer is worth $300. And Edgar, here are the questions for the Vincents.
Thank you. For your first question, we're going to find out what you know about your wife. Will you both please go to the board behind you? Chuck, when you first met your wife, how was she wearing her hair? Short, medium, or long? Just write down either short, medium, or long. And now, Phyllis, you write down how you were wearing your hair. Short, medium, or long.
He wrote medium, and she wrote medium. You now have $100. Your next correct answer will be worth $200.
Subject of your second question is words and music. Do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust my wife.
All right. I'll give you a line from a famous song, and you tell me what city it refers to. And tell me what street compares with Mott Street in July. What city does it refer to?
Is it New York? New York?
New York, yes.
You now have $300. Your next correct answer will be worth $300.
Subject of your third question is clothing. Do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust my wife.
What are jodhpurs?
Riding breeches or trousers.
That's right.
Edgar, the Vincents have won $600, and they may now risk all of it, none of it, or part of it on our board question. But if you lose, what you risked will be deducted from what you already have won. And remember that tonight's top winner competes with our winner from last week for our trust fund question of $100 a week, every week for an entire year.
And remember, the more the question is worth, the harder it is. Now, do you wish to select a category?
Yes, I'll take cities of the world.
Cities of the world. And do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust myself.
Cities of the world. What is the only walled city on the North American continent?
Capital of Method.
The only walled city on the North American continent. It was Canada, Quebec, Canada.
Quebec.
Yes.
Edgar, the Vincents had $600, risked $600, lost $600. So is there one more question you might ask these nice people?
Oh, yeah, this is terrible, yes. Well, I'll give you one more question, and if you answer it, why, you will win $100. In what country are the most Canadians found?
In Canada.
And the Vincents have a grand total of $100. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Edgar Bergen with Mortimer Snerd. Edgar and Mortimer, I'd like you to meet Steve Rowland and his wife Dorothy of Los Angeles.
Well, it's very nice to have you with us, Mr. and Mrs. Rowland. Now, Steve, what sort of work do you do?
Well, I'm an insurance broker, and I also own a delicatessen store at 103rd and Central in Los Angeles.
I see. Insurance and delicatessen. Now, that's quite a combination, isn't it?
Yeah, reckon in both of those jobs you need a pretty good line of baloney, don't you?
No. Did you study insurance at school?
Well, I went to the University of Southern California and the University of Hawaii. I took a postgraduate course at SC, too.
I see. Well, does running a delicatessen, does that get in the way of selling insurance?
Well, no, they work hand in hand.
They do. Mm-hmm. How is that?
Well, for instance, the other night, a fellow came in the store about midnight and purchased a couple of salamis, some Swiss cheese, pickles, hot peppers, and a frozen pizza.
Yeah.
And while I was putting it in the bag, I asked him, how are you fixed for insurance?
Well, if he ate all that, he'd need a lot of insurance.
You could have sold him some fire insurance for heartburn.
Yeah. Dorothy, do you have a job?
No, not now. I did teach school for 2 years in Phoenix, Arizona, in an elementary school before we were married. But I'm pretty busy now with our 2 children, Steve Jr., who's 13, and Nancy Jane, who's 11. Yes. And then I'm quite interested in clubs and organizations.
I see. What organizations are you
Well, my particular interest right now is parent-teacher work. I have been secretary for Wilshire Council, PTA, for the last 2 years. And I'm a past president of Hobart Boulevard PTA. Mm-hmm. And then my husband and I sell memberships for the NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Yes. And then I have another interest. I'm a member and treasurer of Lullaby Guild of the Children's Home Society, which is an adoption agency here.
I see. Well, I would say you're kept rather busy then, aren't you? How did you meet Steve?
Well, it was quite interesting. We met at a fraternity dance, and my cousin, who happens to be a fraternity brother of Steve's, took me to the dance that night since I was visiting here in Los Angeles. And after we had danced around the floor several times, why, I found myself dancing with Steve because my cousin was really interested in the girl he was dancing with. So we traded partners.
Steve, let's get back to your delicatessen. What do you call it?
Steve's Delicatessen.
Steve's Delicatessen.
Well, it ain't nothing very fancy, but it puts the point across.
It does. Is it a large place?
No, it's rather small, but we have a wide selection.
Yes.
In fact, we have a sign out there that says, if you don't smell it, we ain't got it.
And if you do smell it, you've had it too long. Thank you.
No, never mind. No.
I take it when I get it.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Well, now, what are you pushing this week at the delicatessen? Maybe we can give you a little business and a plug over the air here.
This week, we're running a special on borscht, whole-leg mayonnaise, and Swiss cheese.
And Swiss cheese. Hey, I think we ought to go down.
No, I don't think so. I don't care for that Swiss cheese. Oh, yes. No. Why? Well, the holes get in the teeth.
Oh, they do. Well, Steve, how do you find time for both businesses?
Well, from 9 to 5, I sell insurance, and then from 7 to 12, I work at the delicatessen store.
Oh, I see. And what kind of insurance do you sell?
Accident, mostly.
Accident. Mm-hmm. Steve, do you sell life insurance?
Well, not as much as I'd like.
I see. Well, maybe you can interest Mortimer in a life insurance policy. Don't you think so?
No, I don't think so, no. Why? Well, I'll tell you, life insurance, that's what keeps a man poor all his life, so he can die rich.
Is that so? You don't like it, then?
Well, of course, I will say. On the other hand, it does give you something to live on after you're dead.
Well, now we'll give you a chance to insure your future. So let's see if you can't win some money on Do You Trust Your Wife? Mortimer, you better say good night now to the Rolands.
Yeah, good night, Mr. and Mrs. Roland, or as we say in Delicatessen, auf Wiener Schnitzel.
Mr. and Mrs. Roland, you can win up to $1,200 in cash tonight on your way to our trust fund question. Your first correct answer is worth $100. Your second correct answer is worth $200. Your third correct answer is worth $300. Edgar, here are the Roland's questions.
Thank you. Well, Steve, for $100, you're going to show us how much you know about your wife. Will you both please go to the board behind you? Steve, write down what you believe your wife enjoys least. What she enjoys least. Cooking, house cleaning, or sewing. Now, write down either cooking, house cleaning, or sewing. And Dorothy, you write down what you like least. Either cooking, house cleaning, or sewing.
He wrote house cleaning and she wrote housekeeping, but I guess it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. So you now have $100. Your next correct answer will be worth $200.
The subject of your second question is women in sports. Do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust my wife.
Here it is. Who is the first woman to swim the English Channel both ways?
Could it be Florence Chadwick?
That is right. That is right.
You now have $300. Your next correct answer will be worth $300.
The subject of your third question is books and authors. Do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
My wife.
Bud Schulberg's best-selling novel about the exploited prizefighter has been made into a Humphrey Bogart movie of the same name. What is it?
The Harder They Fall.
The Harder They Fall.
Edgar, the Rowlands have won $600, and they may now risk all of it, none of it, or part of it on our board question.
Now, do you wish to select a category?
We'll take the 600 one.
Cities of the world. Now, do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust my wife.
Very well. Here it is. The Turkish city of Istanbul was formerly called by 3 other names. 2 of these names were Stambul and Byzantium. What was the third name?
Constantinople.
That is right.
And the Rowlands have a grand total of $1,200. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Edgar Bergen back with our favorite bachelor girl, Effie Clinker. Edgar and Effie, here are Ben and Helen Rose, all the way from New York City.
Good evening, Helen and Ben. Well, it's nice to have you with us tonight. And how long have you folks been in California?
About 2 years.
About 2 years. What kind of work do you do?
I'm a nightclub pianist.
Nightclub pianist, yeah. How about you, Helen? Do you have a job?
Yes, I work for a newspaper, but before I came to California, I was a model.
A model? A model? Who did you model for?
I worked for the Pat Allen Agency in New York as, I did a lot of work as the before girl and the before and after reducing ad.
Oh, yes, that's good.
As a matter of fact, for a while, I held the title of the fattest model in the United States until I lost some weight.
Lose it, she just misplaced it.
No. Helen, how much did you weigh when you held the title of the fattest model in the United States?
I weighed 310 pounds, and I was very proud of my title.
I see.
You got a lot to be proud of, too.
Yes,
You lucky man, you got wall-to-wall wife.
Yeah.
I'm a cat.
Yeah. I hope you'll forgive Effie for her
That's
remarks.
all right. I'm not at all sensitive about my weight.
Well, I think I would call you pleasingly plump.
Yes, I think so. I think she tried to please too hard.
No. How much did you weigh when you were born? Were you a big baby?
No, you see, it's hard to tell about these things. I only weighed 4 pounds 1 ounce. I was an incubator baby. This one now, he weighed 16 pounds.
16 pounds?
16
You've been
pounds
losing
too
weight ever since, haven't you?
How did you meet Helen?
I first saw Helen at the Bronx Zoo.
What was that?
I first saw Helen at the Bronx Zoo.
And what approach did you use?
Kidded her about her weight.
Helen, do you remember what he said to you?
I certainly do. He said that I was as good as Rita Hayworth, Betty Grable, and Lana Turner all rolled into one. I thought he was a pretty clever fellow.
Effie, I think you ought to excuse yourself now.
All right.
Yeah. Because we're holding up the Rosés from making some nice money, we hope, on Do You Trust Your Wife? So you say goodbye to them.
Well, goodbye and good luck to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just one closing word, one closing thought. Slenderella.
All right.
Mr. and Mrs. Rose, you can win up to $1,200 in cash tonight on your way to our trust fund question. Your first correct answer is worth $100. Your second correct answer is worth $200. Your third correct answer is worth $300. Edgar, here are the Rose's questions.
Sure, thank you. Ben, we first want to find out what you know about your wife. Will you both please go to the board behind you? And then we want you to write down what you believe to be the size of the dress that your wife wears. And then, Helen, you write down the actual size of your dress. See how close you come to guessing the same.
He writes 24, and she writes 24 and a half. Is that close enough, Edgar?
I think so.
Your second correct answer will be worth $200.
The subject of your second question is house and garden. Now, do you trust yourself to answer, or do you trust your wife?
I'll trust my wife.
All right. If someone gave you an antimacassar, would you put your feet on it, place it on the back of a chair, or pour tea from it?
I'd place it on the back of my chair.
That's right. It's a small covering for a sofa or chair to prevent soiling.
You now have $300. Your next correct answer will be worth $300.
The subject of your third question is resorts and vacation lands. Do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust my wife.
All right. The Isle of Capri is one of the most romantic vacation spots in the world. It is located in a bay near what large city?
The Isle of Capri, Nice.
No, it's Naples, Italy.
Naples.
Well, Edgar, the Rosés have won $300, and they may now risk all of it, none of it, or part of it on our board question. But if you lose, what you risked will be deducted from what you already have won. And remember, tonight's top winner competes with our winner from last week for our trust fund question of $100 a week every week for an entire year.
Now, do you wish to select a category?
Theater, I guess.
3?
Number 3. Yeah.
Number 3, all right. And do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust my wife.
All right. The same playwright wrote A Streetcar Named Desire, A Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and The Rose Tattoo. What is his name?
Tennessee Williams.
That is right.
And the Rosés have a grand total of $600. And now it's time for our trust fund question. We will place in trust with the world's largest bank, the Bank of America in California, a trust fund which will pay tonight's winning couple $100 a week for an entire year. Last week, our mind reader, Albert Mogul, and his wife Inez won $100 a week for a year. And here they are, back to try for $100 a week for a second year.
Well, hello, Inez and Albert. You know, folks, Albert is a mind reader, and last week, instead of using his talent to try and answer our questions, he trusted his wife, and she knew all the answers anyway. Well, Albert, have you decided what to do with your winnings, or hasn't your wife told you yet?
Well, no, she hasn't, Edgar, but I've been giving some serious thought to the idea of taking part of the money and devoting it to further telepathic research.
I see. Are you interested in telepathy too, Inez?
Yes, I am, but this is news to me.
Oh, it's news, yeah. Well, why is that?
Well, I thought perhaps we'd use the money for a different purpose.
Huh? What purpose?
Well, you know we have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Yes.
And I thought that with the winning money, we perhaps might be able to start on a 5th baby.
Ah, I see. Well, now, there's just a little difference of opinion here, isn't it? But now let's see if you can't make enough to do both. Ed, who are the tonight's winners?
To compete with the Moguls are tonight's winning couple with $1,200, Steve and Dorothy Rowland. The subject for tonight's trust fund question is sports. And here's that question, Edgar.
Thank you. Well, gentlemen, you've heard the category. It's sports. Now, there's a lot of money at stake. Do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife? I hope you make the right choice. Now, Mr. Mogul, do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I'll trust myself.
And Mr. Rowland, do you trust yourself or do you trust your wife?
I trust myself.
All right. Will you go to the board, please? You will have 20 seconds to answer this question. It's worth $100 a week for a year, and the winner can come back and perhaps make enough to retire for life. This may be the most important answer you will ever have to give. You have 20 seconds, so think clearly, write fast, get your pen ready, and here is the question. On the board are listed 10 competitive sports. When I say go, write down the number of players on each team. That's the number of players on each team. Ready? Go.
The correct answers are baseball 9, U.S. football 11, soccer 11, polo 4, volleyball 6, ice hockey 6, rugby 15, cricket 11, water polo 7, basketball 5. Now, the Moguls have 4 correct, and the Rowlands have 8 correct. The Rowlands are our trust fund winners with $100 a week every week for an entire year.
Mr. Rowland, congratulations. $100 a week for a year. Now, next week we'll be back to try for $100 a week for the second year. Can't lose a thing. Bye. Good night. Although the Moguls lost tonight, they won $1,200 their first week, and we will also pay them $100 a week every week for an entire year. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. And don't forget, we have a date next week at the same time to find out whether Steve and Dorothy Rowland will win $100 a week for a second year, or will there be a new winner on Do You Trust Your Wife?
And now it's time to say goodnight to Charlie McCarthy.
Good night.
Mortimer Snerd.
Me too.
And Edgar Bergen.
See you next week, folks.
Until next week, when they'll be back again with Do You Trust Your Wife? Brought to you by the Frigidaire Division of General Motors and the Frigidaire dealers in your community.